once you're live, then you will be able to share it too. We are live, I think. Let me double check quickly. Okay. Live. One more. Okay. All Gabru from Boston, Massachusetts. As you know, only one day, one more day. And I know of us cannot wait for this election to be over. And you're all going to go with blue and bring decency back to America. We have seen it for 4 years. What went wrong when people don't get out? Every effort, everything we have done so far, if we don't get out and vote, nothing's going to matter. But you can stay home. U.S. citizen, this is an obligation that you're going to have to fulfill by getting out and voting. And some people may think their voice don't matter, their votes don't matter, but and let the system take care of it. So talk a little bit. I have two here with me today from Colorado, how important it is and how we need to be involved, and especially for the European community also, how civic engagement and how we can get involved. This is a very special year. We have to be respectful to each other, but we definitely have to vote and make sure that our voices are heard. Again, thank you again for a very busy time. I mean, I think that there is an echo. A busy time taking out our day to hear, and especially for the Ethiopian community who do have some answers, questions, and how we can get involved with the civic and then the 2020 action. So I'm going to start so that you can introduce yourself. Amy Padden, you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what office are you running this year?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. We're just one day away from this critically important election. So my name is Amy Padden. I live in Aurora, Colorado, and I'm running to be the next district attorney for the 18th Judicial District. It's all of Arapahoe, Douglas, Lincoln, and Elbert counties in Colorado. So it's essentially the eastern and southern suburbs of Denver, and then also moving over into some of the rural areas in that geographic area. And it's the biggest judicial district in the state. It has over 1 million people. So it's actually bigger than a congressional district. And I'm really excited to be running for the seat. And again, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are grateful that you're here on the Yoftahe Show. And then Nikita, thank you again for being here. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what office are you running for?
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Yofta, for this invitation. I'm running for state representative in House District 40, which is located in Southeast Aurora. And there's over 80,000 people within our district. We are bounded at 225 in Hamden. We go south all the way to Arapahoe Road and all the way to the eastern parts 2 miles east of Tower Road. And all the way down Buckley to Tower. So it's kind of the southeastern part of Aurora. And I'm excited to be running to replace Janet Buckner, who is running for the Senate seat in Senate District 28.
Thank you. Thank you for both of you for being here. Like I said, this is a very important year. So I'm going to ask you both a similar question. Amy, if I can get started with you. What does it mean for you running for this year, and why are you running?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, you know, I've been a lawyer for over 25 years right now, and I never really saw myself in politics until the 2016 election. And after the 2016 election and the election of Donald Trump, I was one of those people that woke up the next morning and said, like, I should have done more. Why didn't I do more? And I never want to wake up after an election feeling that way again, and I never will. And, you know, at that point in time, I really wanted to see more women in office as well. You know, we've had very few women hold statewide office in the state of Colorado. For example, we've never had a female governor. We've never had a female U.S. senator. And so, you know, I said, well, rather than waiting for someone else to do it, why don't I do it myself? So I decided decided to run for Attorney General. And that was my brand new to politics. And so learned a ton. I was in a 5-way primary. And I ultimately decided to bow out of the primary a few months before the primary happened because the incumbent in the seat I'm currently running for, our current district attorney, George Brockler, was running as the Republican to be the attorney general, and I did not want him to be our attorney general. And so I decided to unify forces behind Phil Weiser, who earned the Democratic nominee and eventually became our attorney general. I'm just very fortunate to have him as our attorney general. And then so, when 2020 came around, with this election, this just makes sense for me to run for this current seat. Again, it's the biggest judicial district in the state. And we just really need a lot of reform in this district. It's been under Republican control for almost the entire time it's been in existence. And we've just seen so much happening in our communities and across the country lately about, racial inequities, racial injustices, the unfair treatment of immigrants. There are just so many things that need to be addressed. And I'm the candidate to bring those types of reform to this seat, as well as to make sure that we keep our communities safe, because that is, the number one priority of any district attorney is to keep our communities safe. And again, I live in Aurora, where we have a very diverse community. We have a very vibrant immigrant community, including Ethiopian community. We have a great festival every year, which unfortunately we couldn't do this year, the Taste of Ethiopia, but it would have been in August if we had been able to do it. And there's just so much work to be done from the district attorney seat. And so that's why I decided to run this time around, and things are looking really good, but we are going to finish strong over the next 30 some hours. So again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amy. That's definitely a good reason to run. So we don't want anybody to take over. And then I like the idea that you just said, why not me? So you are here to offer that. So I really appreciate that. Nikita, similar question for you. Why are you running?
I am running for many reasons. As an African immigrant, I live in one of the most diverse cities, which is Aurora, Colorado. There's over 160 different languages that are spoken within the public schools, but yet in the state capital, there really isn't representation. Once elected, I will be the first African immigrant to sit in the Colorado State House. I'm running for many reasons, such as immigration, such as quality of public schools, making sure that our schools are getting the proper funding so our kids are getting a quality education, no matter what their zip code is, making sure that small businesses are able to receive the help that they need so that they can survive and recover through this COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to that, we have workers who are working and are not making enough money. So, a living wage that they can earn. Also attainable and equitable housing for people within our community. We just need to be at the table. There's a lot of negative immigrant sentiment that has come down from Washington, D.C. And as immigrants, we bring so much to this country, including lots of millions of taxpayers' dollars that are paid. We also are doctors and nurses and maids in the hotels. We just contribute a lot to the society as a whole. But I think the American dream that we have been, fortunate to receive is fleeting. And I want to make sure that it's here for my children and for the children of the people of Colorado. So I bring determination, tenacity, and drive to ensure that the quality of life for the people in HD 40 is better by me being at the table.
Thank you. I like the saying goes. I think someone may have if we're not at the table, we're at the menu. So definitely agree that we participate fully in the election, and then to be part of the American dream, we have to be part of it. One thing I'm going to ask for both of you, you're running as a person, but sometimes people may not understand what is the office is able to do. A lot of politicians will come in as ABCD, but at the end of the day, if the office is not capable of standing, so I'm going to start the same thing with you. What does a district attorney, because sometimes we have this tendency of thinking a president of the United States is the only person who can change my life, but for most of the days, day-to-day life, as a district attorney, you have more impact on my life than a president can have. from police reform, what's happening during the district. So what does the district attorney office at the local level can and cannot do?
Yeah, so this is a really important point to emphasize, because lots of times all the energy is focused on the federal races, who's going to be my next president, who's going to be my next senator. But to be honest, who is in these more local level seats, all the way, including like city council and mayor, really affects everyone's day-to-day lives in our specific communities. So for district attorney, as DA, I'll be responsible for prosecuting violations of state law that occur within my jurisdiction, so occur within my 4 counties. But the DA has a lot of influence on the way these cases proceed from the very beginning. So, for example, someone's arrested, the DA will decide what charges actually get filed. The DA will make a recommendation to the court whether an individual should be released on a personal or cognizant bond, or whether they have to post a cash bond in order to be released while they're waiting for their trial. The DA can make the decision as to whether or not to offer someone something called a diversion program, whereas, rather than going through court and pleading guilty and serving a sentence, they go down another path, and they got to do a lot of work, but they get connected with, resources like substance abuse counseling and mental health counseling, and repair the harm they've caused their community, but can work their way out of having a conviction on their record, which can be devastating, moving forward. And then, if the case continues down the traditional path, are we making a plea deal, and what is that plea deal involved? Or which defendants are we taking to trial and why? And then what sentences are we asking for at the end of the day? And so the DA makes decisions along the way throughout the entire course of those cases. And so that has a huge impact on our communities. And, in particular, whether we can find some sort of alternatives to incarceration that enhance community safety. And so something like a diversion program that I mentioned is really great. It's only for nonviolent offenders. So we're not taking any violent offenders in these programs. But if we can give individuals who've committed nonviolent offenses the opportunity to rehabilitate, while at the same time, making sure they're paying restitution and that the victim is being made whole, we're going to make our community safer, because the recidivism rates for those programs are so much lower than sending someone to prison. And, when we have a violent offender, yes, those individuals need to be removed from society and pay their debt to society through a prison sentence. But for nonviolent offenders, we need to find better ways to help those folks get their lives back on track if they just made a mistake. And sending them to prison often is not the right answer for nonviolent offenders, because again, they're not going to get the services they need while they're in prison, and it's going to be difficult for them when they are released to find a job, to find housing and things like that. And to be honest, we're setting some people up for failure when we do that. And so, doing things like that are critically important. But we've also seen, the DA can have a role in how immigrants are treated within our communities, and making sure, for example, that immigrants know that they can come forward if they are a victim of a crime, if they are a witness of a crime, if they know of someone who is a victim of a crime that's scared to come forward, they can come forward regardless of their documentation status. And the DA is not going to, try to deport them. We want individuals within our community, regardless of their status, to know that they can come forward, that they can feel safe, and that we will work with them to make sure that whatever is going on in the community is addressed, because that will make our community safer at the end of the day.
Thank you. I'm glad that's the way you described it, because I want people to really understand. A president can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, at the district level, they don't even know what kind of case is being handled, what kind of pressure is there, what laws are really being implemented, because most of the things sometimes is going to be at the discretion of the district attorney, what's being brought in front of the court. So who does, same question for you, Amy, who does a district attorney answer to? So if we have to say you have a boss or someone you report to, who would be you're reporting to?
It's to the people of the state. I mean, that's how we're held accountable. And, I've emphasized that I want my constituents to hold me accountable. I'm not just saying these things on the campaign trail to get elected, like sometimes we see candidates do. I'm a person that lives my values. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I don't, I expect to be held accountable. But, other than that, there's really don't report directly to anybody. We run our office. You know, there are certain cases where, you know, if for example, the governor was concerned about a particular investigation going on at Elijah McClain, which was not in my district. It was in a different part of Aurora, in a different district. But he appointed Attorney General Phil Weiser to do his own investigation into the case. So that sort of thing can happen. But for the most part, we're accountable to the people of our district.
You hear, people? The district attorney has a lot of influence on our life. So you need to get out and vote and pick the right person. And we have here Amy for you, and then I'm hoping if you will get out tomorrow and vote for Amy. Nikita, come to you. Same thing. The office that you're running for, what is the office responsible for?
Which is part of,
sorry.
which is part.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I am running for state representative, which is part of the Colorado State Legislature. And so the legislature is comprised of House of Representatives and Senate. These positions are very, very active within the day-to-day lives of the people of the state of Colorado. We are the ones who legislate. We make laws that impact our schools, healthcare, the budget, how that budget is spent. The laws around minimum wage usually gets back to local control a little bit, but it all starts within the state legislature. How are we going to drill out oil and gas? How far and how close are the oil wells going to be to housing? You know, just the whole gamut is a broad spectrum of everything that impacts our day-to-day life, from taxes to ordinances. All of those things are within the state legislature, and it's very important that people are aware that, you know, they are voting down the ballot and that they engage. The presidential election, of course, everybody's very excited about that, and this is the most important election of the lifetime. But when you have bills about healthcare and how people are going to be treated, you know, like recently before the last session, they passed bills around police officers, and you know, whether or not how could they be accountable, or would they have, you know, immunity, and all of these things. So all of those things are legislated by state legislatures, and I think it's important that people are engaged and understand that these positions are important for their day-to-day life and will impact them for years to come. So
thank you, Nikita. And that we have and Nikita here, and I'm hoping all of you are going to be the one to support her tomorrow. And we even she will also be the first Liberian-American to hold that office. So we have even more at stake. So let me come back to you, Amy, again. On this year, for us, I think there is a video that I shared with you that, especially for Ethiopian Americans, Trump making a comment regarding to Egypt can bomb Ethiopia. As a president of the free world, making a comment like that has not only angered us, but it shows how responsible that he has been, not only for the last 4 years. The words that he says is damaging. So how do we hold someone? I mean, first, once you watched the video, what did you feel? And how can we hold like someone like a president responsible or accountable for the words that he says?
Yeah, so I did watch that video, and I you know, watched some other information about that, and it's outrageous. But unfortunately, it's not the first time he's done things. He does things like this all the time, and not just in the international arena, but also, you know, within the United States. Like when he told white supremacists to stand down and stand by. You know, he is constantly instigating problems that wouldn't exist but for his statements. And, you know, I've said many times on the campaign trail, you know, it's very concerning that he makes statements that support, for example, white supremacists. And now he's making statements that essentially support Egypt waging war on Ethiopia. This is inappropriate, to say the least, from the leader of the free world to be engaging in these types of antics. And, you know, I think he does it, sometimes he does it by tweet. You know, sometimes he does it in his statements. But, you know, it's got to stop. And the American Americans are tired of it. And I mean, that's how we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to hold them accountable tomorrow when we're going to vote them out of office, because, you know, enough is enough. We need someone, regardless of your political persuasion, we need someone who is rational and who is not a bully and who is not looking to instigate fights, but who's looking to broker peace, both domestically and internationally. And Donald Trump has not been doing any of those things. And, you know, we are in a pretty bad state of affairs right now because of his mismanagement, not just of this pandemic, but even before that and since that, just mismanagement at all different levels on all different topics. And, you know, I think, you know, that was one of the reasons I was inspired to run for office in 2016, was because it was election. But I got to tell you, that was much worse than I ever anticipated, the state that we're in right now. And so, you know, even more so than I'm looking forward to myself getting elected tomorrow, I'm really looking forward to Joe Biden getting elected tomorrow, because it's time for our country to turn the page, to move forward, and to regain its control, its place as a leadership in the world arena, and to be, again, trying to broker peace rather than trying to instigate war. It's just inappropriate, and it's not the type of America that I want to live in. And so I'm super optimistic that we are going to have a change, and that's when we're going to hold Donald Trump accountable, is tomorrow.
Thank you, Amy. And I hope, like I said, tomorrow Biden is going to win, and we're going to hold the president. I think Nikita, you can turn the phone down. The volume, there is an echo.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's the beeps on my computer. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
For you, sorry, you do have a personal relationship, like I said, for this. Like, you come from Liberia, and you have seen what uncivil arrest, can be done, has done. And we have seen dictators also, what they have done, what kind of damage that they have done. But in a free world that we all came in to live in, America that we love and we respect, and we seeing the president holding that office and acting even worse than those kind of dictators here in America. So whenever you see that, what is the irony? Because for me, sometimes I feel like America is supposed to be the model for the rest of the world, and we have someone like Donald Trump sitting in office and not caring or acting, sometimes I hate to say it, like a 2-year-old having temper tantrum. What is the relation? What is the irony for you? You ran away for the American dream, and then you're met with someone like Donald Trump.
You know, and it's so funny. I was listening to CNN a couple of days ago, and as I was just passing into like one room and the other, and I thought, why do I feel like I'm in Russia? And it's really like very weird. And that's how I'm feeling. And I do see like the American dream slipping away, coming from a country like Liberia, where, you know, we came because of war, we came because of dictatorship and corruption. And the last 4 years have just really been mind-boggling. I really put America on the very top standards as far as our Constitution and everything that meant. But I don't think that we have seen anyone who has tried to push the test and the boundaries of this the Constitution. I think it seems almost like our founding fathers didn't really anticipate someone would come and dishonor the office and push the boundaries like we were having and experiencing. And so every day you have to kind of rein him in, but it's like there's no boundaries, there's no levels. It almost appears like he wants to be like a Putin or something, where he wants to go for a third term, which is not in the Constitution. He's making statements that are just out of crazy. You should not be able to just say anything, because, you know, his words do have power, and they carry a lot of weight in the world. But I also have seen that America is not like that model anymore. And it's almost sad that, you know, we're going to be dictating to other people how they should treat their citizens, how they should act. We also have to be that role model and that shiny example of what democracy should be. But yeah, it's slipping away. And another 4 years is disturbing. We really do need a change tomorrow. And I hope that Joe Biden is going to be, elected tomorrow. So
thank you. Same question that I was asking me regarding the video. You watched it. what was your reaction when you watched that video?
So I had seen the video before, and I think about a week ago when it first came out, or it was being circulated. And it's crazy. You can't say stuff like that. You're inserting people. You're bringing, like Amy brought up, other examples. But then he's also said stuff about Africa. We're whole countries. He's talked about Mexicans being criminals, and it's very insulting all the way around. But to try to incite violence in another country or another continent, it's just sad. That should not be. I think he should just have more integrity and just watch his words. But I don't know. That's not the person that's seated in the White House right now. So it's sad.
I understand. Amy, let me come back to you, because one of the biggest worry that I have for 4 years that Donald Trump has been in office, we are all still thinking to run for a second term. So even though we have seen really some bad things or horrible things even, my worry if he gets a second term where he doesn't have any need to run, he can't even run even if he wants to. So that means he has nothing to really answer to. That means he's going to even bring us into more damage and chaos. So it's going to be giving him free reign, green light to do whatever he wants, because as if like what we haven't seen was not enough. Now, when most of the president, not only for Donald Trump, but once they run for 4 years, they always want to be reelected. And most of the damages that we see will be on the second term. And that's my worry. So what do you think, God forbid that he's going to win, or that what we should prevent from happening if he does, or if he's running for a second term?
Yeah, that's a very valid concern, and I mean that's one of the issues with our system. Term limits are good things, and for my office I'm running for, you're limited to 2 4-year terms as well. But that also means that there's very little accountability in that second term, because you're not running for re-election. And frankly, most of the accountability would typically come from the individual's party itself. But we've seen the Republican Party refuses to hold Donald Trump accountable for anything. But that's what usually would happen, because they want to, hold on to the seat and make sure whoever candidate is running to succeed the person will win. But, we've time and time again, Republicans have had the opportunity to call him out. And there are some Republicans that do call him out. I mean, there are some for sure, the folks behind the Lincoln Project and other things like that. But, the folks in the U.S. Senate, no. And so, I'm very fearful of what will happen if he has another term. I think we are going to see a huge spike in hate crimes. I think we are going to see, people just feel emboldened to just disseminate hate because the president himself is doing it and condoning it. And, we're just going to have to be very vigilant. And I mean, if that worst case scenario happens, I'm hopeful that we manage to flip the U.S. Senate, because then there will at least be some accountability and control. But right now, the U.S. Senate, the Republicans in the U.S. Senate, that's a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, and they have the majority. And so there's very little that can be done. We saw the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett rush through in a matter of weeks, just shortly before the election, and Republicans did a complete about-face about the way they treated Merrick Garland when he was nominated. So, but this emphasized why it's so important to vote, and it's also just so important to vote all the way down the ballot. Vote for, don't just vote for president and then stop. Keep voting. If you live in Colorado, vote for John Hickenlooper. Vote for your congressperson. Vote, for your DA candidate, your state house, and state senate, and vote the entire ballot, because these things all matter. And it also matters to build the bench for our future leaders by electing individuals like Naquetta and like myself to these offices that aren't at the top of the ticket. But we need to keep building the bench for our next generation of future leaders to be ready to take the helm.
Thank you. Same thing, for you, second term is going to be definitely terrible, but we have the power to stop it now and tomorrow. So what is your message for tomorrow, so that something like that doesn't happen and people understand? Amy said it at the beginning of the show. It's like, I wish I have done ABCD. The reason I'm doing the show even today is like, I'm not doing it on November 4th. It has to be done before. After November 3rd, there's nothing we can do to change the outcome of it. So What is your message that how people need to get involved now before it's too late?
So to our community and to everyone watching this show, we are standing at the precipice of the most important election in our history. And I think everybody will agree in recent times that, we see the turnout, we see people turning out. Please, if you are a US citizen and you're able to vote and you have that right that was paid for by blood, sweat, tears, of people. We're standing with the privilege to vote. Your vote does matter, no matter what it is. I won by 388 votes. Every one of those votes were important. Every election matters. So please participate. You might have a ballot that is sitting on your coffee table, in your mailbox. It's come out 3 weeks ago. You may not be able to find it. Please go to your nearest municipal building. You can go to gocoloradovote.com. GoColoradoVote.com and find where your polling places are. If you can find your ballot, fill it out like Amy said, all the way down the ballot. Vote. It's very, very important that you vote. Your vote does matter. If you've seen anything that is dissuading you from not wanting to vote, don't ignore all of that. It really does count. And what we do today and tomorrow is going to determine our future for years to come. And I think you just cannot sit on that privilege of voting. And I can't stress enough how important it is for you to vote for president, but all of the local seats, like my seat, like Amy's seat, like the Senate seats, the Senate, the federal Senate seat, John Hickenlooper. We have, Jason Crow, CD6. You have me, Janet Buckner, Amy Padden. You have Ilana Spiegel. All of these people are voting and are carrying our values. Your vote is your voice, and it does matter. Please cast that vote today.
Thank you. That's good. So for people that I can understand, you mentioned it at the beginning about the district attorney, but there are from any kind of reform that people can understand, like I said, from governor or down, the local state, it does matter. So for you, when you try to motivate people, where they think because I don't think a lot of us are really involved in the local level, what is it that they're missing, people? Or is it because it doesn't get enough coverage? Most of us watch maybe CNN and Fox News only, and they only talk all day long about Biden and Trump, and nothing is being discussed. And do we have to hear what matters in our life on the news to be able to understand it? Or how do we educate ourselves to understand why or how we should get involved in the local level?
Yeah, so I mean, if folks are watching this right now, they're already taking the first step because they're hearing more about why these races are so important and what these offices actually do. But like for example, for the DA, all these things we talked about, I can do. I don't need the state legislature to pass a new law to do most of these things. I mean, for some things we do need some statutory reform, and that has to come from the state legislature, but the DA has a lot of discretion. And so that's critically important. But we have seen with DA roles in particular, interest in these races that we've never seen in prior cycles. And a lot of it is because of all the racial injustices that we've seen taking place, and we've seen them unfolding, with law enforcement. Like in the case of George Floyd, in that case, the local prosecutor had only charged one of the officers initially, not the other three, and it only charged that one officer with third-degree murder. And then the state attorney general stepped in and elevated the charge, the third degree, to a second-degree murder charge, and then also charged the other three officers. And we even saw that with Ahmaud Arbery. We saw that case was, essentially passed around like a hot potato among a couple different prosecutors until the world saw the tape and the world saw what actually happened, and the world demanded justice for Ahmaud. And at that point in time, the individuals were charged. And so, but these are all things that the DA has discretion over. It's very unusual that the DA can be forced to file charges, but the DA has discretion as to whether to file and what those charges are going to be. And That's one reason why those things are so important. But then you also look at criminal justice reform. We did have a comprehensive criminal justice reform bill passed, even though our state legislature only sits from January until May, and that was obviously thrown out of schedule with the pandemic. But they still managed to get our Senate Bill 217 through, which has a lot of great reforms that we need to our local law enforcement practices and procedures and things like that. And so, you know, again, that happened at the local level. It did not happen at the federal level. And so that's why all of these races are so important. And that's why it's critically important to vote all the way down the ballot. Make sure your vote counts. And, you know, if you've already voted, reach out to friends, reach out to friends and family and say, have you turned your ballot in yet? Do you have a plan? Are you going in person? Do you need a ride to the polls? In Colorado, everybody gets a ballot in the mail, so our elections are very secure, and you can drop it off at a drop box, but it's too late to put it in the mail now. So check in with your family members. If they say, I'm going to the post office to mail, no, it's not going to count. So you got to take it to a drop box. But there are volunteers. If people reach out to their local Democratic Party, volunteers will come pick up your ballot off your porch and deliver it to you for the mailbox, or give you a ride to the polls if you want to vote in person. And so, but just check in with your friends and family and make sure that they're voting, because this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Thank you. And a similar question for you, Nikita. For the people who are afraid or thinking like mail in is not going to count, something is going to be lost, or there's a lot of fear the president has signed in that this election is going to be stolen by ABC, and then be afraid of even being involved, or there are some gunmen coming in and being at the door and waiting for them. So for those people who get out and vote tomorrow, this is America after all. So what message do you have so that people needs to get out of it? They should not be afraid. And what message do you have?
So my message is, please don't be afraid. Don't let, social media or anything intimidate you. If you do encounter anything like that, you can report it immediately, because it's illegal for anyone to harass people as they're voting. This is America, and those values still stand, that you can go and cast your vote, and you have a freedom to vote for who you choose to vote. We want you to vote. Even if you don't vote for me, just vote. We need you to vote, because it's important for your voice to be heard. So many people have already spoken, and if you don't participate, then you don't have a right to really complain, because you did not take the time, just a few minutes, to put that ballot in the mail. If you need help, we can pick up your ballot for you. If you need someone to drive you to the polls, we can do that. If you need help filling out the ballot, you can call and get some clarity, or we can send you information on different ballot issues that you need to be aware of. But what we want to tell you is that it is important for you to vote. Do not be afraid. Do not listen to the fact that, it's already rigged. It's not over until it's over, and every vote does matter. And in Colorado, if you're even not registered to vote, but you are a citizen, you can walk up today and register, and you can vote at the same time. So our laws are very lenient. Make sure, though, that you're not putting it in the post office box. It's too late to mail it. So please take it to the nearest library, take it to a nearest school, or to the Arapahoe County or Aurora Municipal Building, and you can drop it off there. But please do not sit on your ballots. Vote, vote, vote like your life depended on it, and call your friends and family and make sure they're voting too.
Thank you. I think you both said it rightly. If nobody voted, you can influence your friends and family by making sure to ask them to vote, especially if you have family members who live in the battleground. Make sure to call and tell them they need to get out and vote. Unfortunately, sometimes certain states are already doomed to be red or green, or red or blue, but there are some swing states that we are waiting for all of us to get their answers. Amy, back at you. If I think you're going to win tomorrow, so we're going to say once you win tomorrow, that's how I'm going to speak. What would be one of the things that all of us sometimes ask is systemic racism, or the law being really disadvantageous? A certain group might end up getting a lesser sentence versus some group are going to get the maximum for anything that counts. So what is it that you can do as a district attorney so there is a fair, like I said, if it's a criminal, it needs to be put away. I'm all for that, so they need to do that. But for some sentences that are not really call it equitable or fair, what would be your role to make sure that systemic racism doesn't play a role and it's going to be all judged by the merit of the case?
Yeah, so what I've committed to do is to have an audit of our data. So let's look at our data. Let's look at what decisions we're making throughout the life of the case, like I've been talking about earlier today, and let's see how race has infected that process, because I'm sure it has, but there are people who don't think it has. And I'm a numbers person. I actually was a chemistry major undergrad. My mom really wanted me to be a doctor, and was dismayed when I decided to be a lawyer. But so let's pull the data, let's look at it, and let's see how different races are disproportionately affected by these decisions. And then we're going to come up with policies that make sure that we are moving forward in a neutral way. And the other thing I've committed to do is to strengthening our conviction integrity review process. Right now, if someone's convicted and they later say, no, I was wrongfully convicted, the process that's in place in the office right now is limited to cases of actual innocence. So it can't be, I got a stiffer sentence than the white defendant in a similar situation, or, my constitutional rights were violated and I shouldn't have been convicted in the first place. It's limited to actual innocence. And it's also, it's a program that's run totally by unpaid volunteers. And so, this is a very serious issue. And so we need to devote good attention to it and resources to it. And so I will be revamping that process to make sure that we are reviewing when there's a question about whether someone's wrongfully convicted, that we are fairly and thoroughly reviewing that. And, the flip side of wrongful convictions that people don't talk about a lot is that if we have wrongfully convicted someone, not only have we ruined that person's life, but we've allowed the actual perpetrator to go free. And, during, over the past few months, I've had many, many town halls, and one was with 3 men who are all men of color who have been convicted to death row, sentenced to death, and they were later exonerated from committing the crime at all, not just taken off a death row. And in every one of those cases, they weren't from Colorado. There were 2 people from Florida and 1 from Ohio. And the man from Ohio was sent to death row when he was 17 years old. That's not constitutional to do anymore. But in each of their cases, I asked them, and I didn't know the answer to this question when I asked them, but I was shocked to find the answer, whether the actual perpetrator of those murders that they had originally been convicted of and later exonerated, whether the actual perpetrator had ever been found. And for all 3 of them, it was no. So in all 3 of those cases, those were horrific murders. The actual murderer went free because those 3 men were wrongfully convicted. And we need to do a better job of prosecutors that if, we get information that maybe a mistake was made, maybe something inappropriate happened, that we do, have those hard conversations, but look back and look at the case and give it a serious look and determine whether or not there has been a wrongful conviction, because, that's what we've got to do. We've got to serve justice as prosecutors.
Thank you. That's a good promise. So we're hoping that tomorrow bring us that, so that relationship, and then hold everybody accountable for the wrongdoing they're going to do. I'm going to ask you more of a personal question. Being from Liberia, I'm myself from Ethiopia. Sometimes immigration or immigrant, we forget America was built on immigrants from Europe. A lot of Irish people from the famine potato season, they had to run from famine, from religious persecution, and that's how America was built. And sometimes people forget the story of you and I, that people need to understand. You are a good example coming in from Civil War, making it to what the you are doing, and we want you to be that immigration people need to understand. We are very proud. We are here to support you. Not only you are from Liberia, but you are the model as an American citizen you are providing. What is it that some people are missing, that they focus on the negative part? And what do you think your role is to show America we are here together? And then I think one of the comments in your things, we are in this together, that you have on your website, that I really like with that. So if you can expand a little bit more on that.
me here because of war. We had a civil war in my country, and my mom was held at gunpoint, for several hours as my sister and I watched. And she was engaged to a government official. And once they found him, they took him away, had my mom at gunpoint, and it was the grace of God that they didn't take her. And within a few days of rounding up all of the government officials, they lined them up on a beach in the capital city and then shot them by firing squad. So it was very traumatic experiences. And we came to Aurora. Aurora was a really great place to grow up. I think that, we do have immigrant stories, and that America is a country of immigrants. We are the new Americans, as they call us. And, we are here to make contribution. We all are fleeing something, looking for that better life, and trying to make the places that we settle in better places, making sure that they are more inclusive, making sure that they're more equitable. And I think that this is what the role is. There might be some fear of people who feel like, oh my God, these immigrants are trying to take over everything. And I don't think so. I mean, I love this country just like I love my birth country, but I've been here way longer, for over 40 years now. And so I'm very thankful to grow up here. It's such a privilege to be even able to stand in this position and say, oh, I'm running for office, and then to be able to be someone that's going to be at the table to make decisions that are going to impact the state of Colorado and everyone. So I don't take that lightly. I know that we're standing on the backs of African Americans. They were the people who have gone through all of this, and it's made it possible for me as an immigrant coming from Africa to say that I want to run for office, for me to have good schools to go to, for me to have good jobs, because they had to pay that price. So I do honor our African American brothers and sisters, and we join in that fight for equality, because they're still fighting over 400 years. So this country is one of the greatest countries in the world, but there are things that we need to do to fix it and make it more equitable for everyone. And I think that immigrants want the same things that everyone wants, quality public schools, good jobs. We want to be able to do our businesses and be profitable, so we're no different than anyone else coming here. But I think that there's enough for everyone. And I think if we're not seeding hate, we're not seeding division, then we can come together and live and all enjoy a peaceful, more perfect union is what we're all seeking. And yes, together we can do this.
Amen to that. Together we can. Amy, let me ask you a little bit, like I said, a similar question is, whenever someone says I'm a Jewish American, I'm an Irish American, Italian American, there is no negativity that comes out with it. But if I say I'm Ethiopian American, Liberian American, and sometimes as if like we don't belong, or I served in the Army. I was in there for 8 years. So I was a medic. But what do you think it's missing to close that gap? I mean, we may be talking about it, but unfortunately, we have also a president who didn't help with this, actually made it even worse with that division. So where do you think the communication or the coming together part needs to happen? What are we missing? Sometimes I'm just puzzled. Where is it? Is there some kind of magical button that we can press, or is it we're not having a discussion enough? I mean, when I was in the Army, one thing that I want to mention to the people, I was at Fort Jackson. They were kids, Black kids or white kids that have never been with a white person. I'm a Black person who's never been with a white person, or a Black person who has never seen a white person unless it's on TV. And I come myself from Africa at that moment, and I have seen more white people myself than the people living here. And then I was so puzzled. So we talk about integration, we talk about living together, but there are some people still not living together at all, or living the same, what I call the American dream life together. So what are we missing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an easy answer to that. I mean, I think a lot of it is just being willing to have difficult conversations, I, as a white woman, I think, a lot of white people, they're afraid to talk about these racial issues because they're afraid they're going to say something wrong or something offensive. But, we have to have these conversations. We can't just keep putting our head in the sand, and we have to, hear our our Black and brown friends out and hear, how they feel. And I've said this many times on the campaign, I have no idea of what it's like to be a Black man in America. I don't know what it's like to worry that, my son goes out and is driving in a car and might get pulled over and may never come home. I don't understand what that's like. So I have to be willing to listen, and I have to be willing to hear what it's like, because, I can't relate to that. And, I think we need more openness. We need more of a willingness to listen. And, another thing I did on the campaign trail is, I had the 8 or 9 town halls during the course of the campaign trail, and I set them up as listening tours. So, I had one with members of the immigrant community. I had one with Black defense attorneys. I had one with educators about, what we can do to address the school to prison pipeline. And, again, as a white person, I don't have the answers to all these, and I don't know what it's like. So I have to be willing to listen, and to listen with an open mind, and to have a dialogue. And I'm going to continue that after I'm elected. I'm going to have a community liaison group that will, be outreaching to communities. I'm going to continue to have town halls. DAs usually don't do that. But it's important to me that the constituents that elected me know that I'm going to continue to listen, not just when I'm trying to get their vote, but when I'm doing the job of representing them. I'm going to continue to listen to what they need, what's going on in the community, what we can be doing better to serve the community, what we can be doing better to make sure everyone feels safe and that everyone is treated fairly.
Thank you. We're coming to the end of the show, so I just want to try to wrap it up a little bit. I want to thank both of you for everything that you have been doing. So for the people out there, at this moment, I don't think there's anybody who's undecided, but if someone tells me undecided, I just say to them, maybe you don't want to tell me who you're voting for, or we can have this discussion. But just in case, for both of you, I'm going to ask this question. There are some undecided voters out there. What is at stake? And what is it that they need to do to be part of this and get out a vote? So I'm going to start with you, Nikita. For those people who are out there, if they say they are undecided, maybe they are. They're likely they are, because they can make a big difference in this election year. So what message do you have?
I would say that if you are undecided and you're still sitting there with the ballot, I want you to fill out that ballot. Think about, are you better off? How do you feel, depending on how long you've been here or what the issues, how do you feel about COVID? Are you recovering? Are you very optimistic about where the country is going? And will there be a quick recovery? How has things been handled? How are things going on with your business or your job situation? And if all of that is still good with you, think about your relatives and your friends, and think about, what do you want, and who is going to be that person who matches with the values that you have and the dreams, and you think that you believe in, that candidate will be the person that will vote or enact the laws that you want to see enacted. So, but please vote, no matter what it is. You must participate. I think that there's a lot of things on the table right now. The whole country is up in arms. And so, vote for peace, vote for something that's going to make us stable, vote for something that's going to give us a hope and a future for our children. Vote and cast that ballot. Again, it's too late to mail it. So please find your nearest drop box. Go votecolorado.com and drop it off. Usually a public school or a library has the ballot boxes. And if you need help, reach out to me. I'm Naquetta Ricks. I'm at ricksforco.com. I'm on Facebook, Naquetta Ricks for Colorado, Naquetta Ricks. And please reach out, and I'd be happy to talk more. But if you're in Colorado, please vote and call your friends around the country to vote.
Thank you. I'm going to read a quick comment. Nikita, she's saying, I lost my ballot. I'll go to the polling station tomorrow. You both have my votes. And she says, thank you, Yoftahe. So here's one vote that does matter. She's going tomorrow. Just like Nikita said, if you don't have the ballot, it's too late to mail anything right now. So you need to make sure to vote. Same, Amy, for you. Question is, there are people who decided right there. What is it that they need to understand? What's at stake right now? And they need to get involved, not just sit at home, throw away their voice. What message do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen quite literally that lives are at stake, and particularly Black and Brown lives are at stake because of what's going on in our criminal justice system. And my opponent has worked for our incumbent for 8 years, and he's not about reform. There was nothing about reform on his website until he started seeking the endorsements of criminal justice reform groups, and those groups all endorsed me, because this is something that's been part of my platform from day one. I've been running for this office for 17, 18 months. And I am the candidate that can make changes. And I'm the candidate that can make changes that are going to address these inequities to the best that we can, but they're also going to make our communities safer. And that is a key component. There's a lot of fear mongering going on the Republican side of these DA races, that somehow these Democratic DA candidates are just going to open up the prison doors and let all the violent offenders out. That is absolutely not going to happen. Violent offenders do need to be removed from society. They do need to serve prison terms. But again, we have to do better about treating our nonviolent offenders, about trying to rehabilitate them, trying to make sure they make amends for the harm that they cause their communities, and to make victims whole. But again, if we do that, we'll reduce recidivism rates and we will make our communities safer at the end of the day. And so all those things are on the ballot in your district attorney race. And so I would encourage folks, if you haven't made up your mind, I would love to have your votes. Again, we can come pick up ballots from people's doorsteps if you don't have transportation to get to a ballot box, or if you want to go vote in person and you need transportation. Reach out to either my campaign, reach out to your local party, and they will help you. But it's critically important. And my campaign website is my first and last name. It's amypadden.com, amypadden.com, and you can read more about me and reach out to the campaign there. But this is just such a critical election. A lot of folks have already voted, but there's still tens of thousands of people who haven't voted in my district. And please let your voice be heard. Please return your ballot by 7 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of you for being here. I'm going to give you each 1 minute or less, if you want to talk directly to the Ethiopian American community. So Nikita, I'm going to start with you. Go ahead and speak to the Ethiopian American community out there listening. If they don't know a little bit about you, this is your platform right now.
Salam, everyone. I have lived in Colorado for over 40 years. I am Liberian-American. And I am asking for your vote. I know what's important to us. We're looking for quality schools. We're looking for jobs. One of the biggest things that I want to work on is putting Colorado back to work. So many businesses have suffered with the shutdown and the pandemic, making sure that those businesses are recovering. So many restaurants have been hit. We want to make sure that they're eligible and getting access to the funding. They were not able to get the PPP loans or the economic disaster loans. And I am the founder and president of the African Chamber. I want to make sure, aside from the election, that people are getting the support that they need to access capital, and then technical assistance to make sure that they are thriving. So that is something that we do, that I do aside from the election. But it is important that you vote. I also want to give a shout out for there were a bunch of innocent people that were killed. So I want to express my condolences for the people who were massacred by gunmen in the Wolaga region of Western Ethiopia yesterday. So my support and my heart and thoughts and prayers are with you. And I pray for peace for all over our continent that we love. But then I also pray for peace here in America. So please vote and be a part of this democracy. It's such a privilege for us to be able to vote and not have anybody come and have a gun to our head or anything like that. So please cast your vote today, and by tomorrow, 7 p.m. is very, very important.
Thank you, Nikita, for mentioning that. I was going to say that because people have been killed, just like you fled from Liberia. I'm looking forward to work for both of you to make sure that once election is over tomorrow, there are like imminent massacres, genocide happening right now in Ethiopia that we need to address, and how we need to get involved with that. So Amy, back to you. You're speaking to the Ethiopian American community in Colorado. What do you want to say to them?
Yeah, well, so it's just critically important to vote and turn in your ballot by 7 p.m. tomorrow, please vote the entire ticket. So as your next DA, I will make sure that you and your families are safe. I will make sure that if you or someone you love or a friend has an encounter with the criminal justice system, that they are treated fairly. I live in Aurora, where we have a vibrant immigrant community, including an Ethiopian community. My opponent does not live in Aurora. I understand the needs of Aurora. I understand the needs of our great diverse communities here in Aurora and throughout the entire district. And so I would be honored to have your vote. Again, it's got to be received by tomorrow at 7 p.m. But it is time to turn the page for this office. It's time to take the office in a new direction, and I would be honored to lead the office in that path.
My message for all: get out and vote. You cannot vote on November 4. You have to do and make sure to look. Some states that can allow to register and vote at the same time. Some states are registered, you're not able to vote. So, but if you did voted, get out and call as many people as you can, especially on the battleground, to get out and vote. Tonight, 9 p.m., I'm making a call. We're going to be all of us getting together, and we're going to do get out and vote Zoom call. As many people can join, we'll be sending the link. It's like a virtual knocking door last minute that we're going to be doing. So anybody you can invite, you can join them at the Yoftahe Show. We're going to be on the call. Everybody's going to have a commitment for 5 minutes to say what state they live in, what they're going to do personally, why this year is important to them. And all of you would like to commit to call at least 10 people and have them get out and vote, because if we don't get out and vote, nothing matters. Once again, Amy, I know you'll be the next DA, and then Nikita, I know you'll be representing us in Colorado. So I wish you all best of luck, and we will talk again. We have a lot of work together, so wish you a blessed day from the Yoftahe. I wish you win tomorrow. So have a good day and bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Amy. Bye.
Yes, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.